This is the official Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition Shadow from the official Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition monster manual from Wizards of the Coast. A really creepy, scary creature that you do not want to encounter, especially on the lower levels of D&D. These are the shadows that are in the dreaded accursed bestiary by Nord Games. The ones from Wizards of the Coast are nothing compared to these ones. Hi there, fellow Dungeon Masters. My name is Mr. Trask, and this is another encounter video. A death is a part of the game, and I just want to talk about how this one happened, because I think it was a very, very cool encounter, and my players actually, although somebody died, spoiler alert, they actually think it was a very cool encounter, and they're actually legitimately scared of shadows now, which is a good thing, because that's what they are designed for. So I'm actually talking about this book again, The Ultimate Bestiary, Dreaded Accursed by Nord Games. It is one of my favorite bestiaries, together with Revenge of the Horde. These are bestiaries that center around a certain particular type of creatures, and these ones are undead, and they have an entire section on shadows. And they have like 2 pages of lore, they have random encounters, they have artwork for them, and they have 4 or 5 different kind of shadows to put against your players. And one shadow in particular is called the Treacherous Shadow. It is such a cool creature because it has one distinct feature that I really like that the normal shadow from Wizards of the Coast doesn't have. Now, it is just a shadow. By that I mean it has this strength drain ability where if it attacks you and it hits, you need to roll a save, and if you don't, your strength is drained, and if your strength becomes 0, you drop to 0 hit points. It has shadow camouflage, it has all these things. Now, they add 2 things in here. The first one is sneak attack. Yes, this shadow can actually sneak attack. Like the same way a rogue can sneak attack. Like if there is another shadow or an ally next to the creature, it can do sneak attack. While it's already draining your strength and already dishing out a lot of damage, it can even do more damage, which is like not a fun thing to have against you as a player. And then it has umbral betrayal. And I just want to read this out loud because this is the reason I set up the encounter exactly the way I did and have it feel the way it felt for the players. It's really spooky, it's really creepy, but for that you need to know what umbral betrayal is. Once per day, the treacherous shadow possesses a mundane shadow it can see within 60 feet. That is cast by a humanoid who is unaware of the shadow's presence. The treacherous shadow disappears into the possessed shadow. The target is unaware of the possession and carries the treacherous shadow around as its own shadow, which can choose to mimic the target's movement. Like a Peter Pan situation, right? Where this shadow was actually loose from Peter Pan. While the treacherous shadow is possessing a creature's shadow, the shadow takes, I'm saying shadow a heck of a lot of times, but it just says it like this, right? It takes only half damage dealt to it, and the creature whose shadow is possessed takes the other half. Cool stuff, but here comes the cool part. The possession lasts until the target drops to 0 hit points, or the treacherous shadow ends it using a bonus action. I'm just gonna set the scene here, right? My players were on a ship, and they saw this spooky small island which had like very high rocky pointy peaks, and there was waves crashing against this island, and on top of this island sat a lone chapel church-like building, very small, overgrown with vegetation, and it's like my players wanted to go to this island and check it out. So they got to the island, checked it out, they went to the chapel, they climbed like for a few hours. They came into this church where it was a small building. It had an altar at the very end, on the very like the north end of the chapel. There was a single altar standing there. There were 3 benches on either side of the chapel, looking towards like this altar, like stereotypical chapel thing, but abandoned and spooky. And I try to really set the scene here. And something very important that I said to my players was, for them it was just me setting the scene, but it was actually very important to what I was about to do to them. I said a single ray of light comes from a single roof window. There's a window in the roof, and there's a single ray of light that casts a ray of light through the chapel and casts beautiful shadows against the west wall. So while you enter the chapel, you see your own shadow, a big shadow of yourself against the west wall, which is like a very beautiful sight. And then I moved on from that. I said it, my players took it in, they were really like listening to this. They took it in, and then they entered this chapel. But I wasn't really ready to come up with these shadows just yet, because I wanted them to kind of forget what I said and then remember it again when it all happened. So they went up to this altar, they did some investigation, and on this altar sat a single cup with holy water. And it was just a basic riddle situation where the cup had a text on it, and they just needed to read it out loud and then drink from the cup. And if they did that, the altar would move and it would reveal the dungeon below the church. Very quickly, before I forget, 60% of my viewers are not subscribed to my channel, which means there is a big chance that you are watching me for the second, the third, the fourth time, and you're not subscribed to my channel. It really helps me out a ton if you hit that subscribe button, if you hit that bell button, if you hit the thumbs up, and put in the comments below what you like to see on my channel. They felt like, oh my god, yeah, we did it. We handled the riddle and we actually got to the dungeon, and now we can do this optional dungeon. And we know that when Mr. T does optional side quests, they are very dangerous. But my players know that my side quests are deadly. But there's like high risk, high reward for my side quests. When I do a side quest, it's high risk, high reward. So I know that in 90% of situations, my players will be like, yeah, we're going in there. So they decided to go in there. I actually asked them for their travel formation. There was a single staircase where they can only travel in a single line, like one character after one character behind one character. And when I ask for travel formation, in most of the situations, my players will think, oh, we're going towards something, or oh, something is coming towards us. So they came up with this cool travel formation. For some reason, the monk, who's by the way a very cool character, actually decided to go last to the staircase. And this is where it happened. The last person to go in there, right before they wanted to go in there, got attacked by their own shadow, which was a sneak attack. Her own shadow crawled out of the wall right towards her and like drained some energy, life energy out of her and attacked her. And she was like, what the is happening here? She was like, she's always like very, very into it. So she's no, I'm gonna die. And then another person at our table actually did something very heroic. She decided that Archer, the male character, got out there and tried to attack the shadow of the monk. But what they didn't know was that actually every time now somebody went into the room, their own shadow would attack them inside this chapel. So now there were two shadows. Now you have like two shadows attacking two creatures, and the other people, they didn't dare to come in. Like one flat towards the dungeon, the other ones were standing in the staircase shooting stuff. And it is actually not the monk who died, but it was the barbarian, Archer the barbarian, who went in, saved the monk. The monk was able to get out there, and it was the barbarian Archer who like this Rambo figure who actually died from saving the monk. When these shadows popped out, and I described it like it crawls out at you, and it's your own shadow that's suddenly standing behind you, and it still has like these features that belong to you, right? But it's also attacking you. It freaks them out, but they remember, as soon as the shadows came out, they remembered me saying the thing about the shadows like an hour earlier, before the riddle. Like when they were entering the chapel, like that scene setting moment was really important for them to now understand what was going on, and they remembered that. They were like, oh yeah, these shadows, there was these big shadows, and now they attack us. So it was basically literally a setup and an execution. The setup was me explaining about these shadows, having it all like feeling really spooky and everything. Also now the players realized it was actually a trap, so people were stopped from going into the dungeon. They were attacked by their own shadow. It was the setup. There was this long setup where I said something, then we did something else, and then you got the execution where the shadows actually attack them. I feel bad when I kill player character, but also like this really set the atmosphere for the undead dungeon they were getting themselves into. And the monk is still living, so happy ending for some people and not so happy ending for other people.